Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Christine Dixon of The Ordinary Sacred, and this is a Q&A video. People have submitted wonderful questions, and I want to take time to answer them because many people often have similar questions, so it helps a lot of people. So this person asks, how do I handle when things go wrong? Meaning that firefighters get super activated. So first, I have a lot of empathy for this because I know that burdened firefighters are very extreme. They can be incredibly destructive and scary, right? If we're overtaken by a compulsive, addictive behavior, or maybe it's rage or self-harm or even suicidality, these are really scary um, jobs that these parts have. And so it's very understandable if other parts feel overwhelmed, afraid, so badly, want them to stop. So the first step is actually to get to know the parts who are having a response to the firefighter. Like I said, parts who are afraid, who want to fix them, critics who are telling them they're so bad. Because if we approach the firefighter while we're blended with one of those parts, the firefighter will not open up to us. And we really want the firefighter to open up to us because that's how we'll gain the insight about what they're protecting. Because the truth is that firefighters and really any extreme protective part cannot stop doing what it's doing until what it protects underneath is healed. So, our hope is really to gain the trust of that part, to understand that they're doing this for a reason. They make sense. Even if we don't get it on the surface, we can be sure that they make sense, that they're doing this for a reason. And in their own logic, it feels like the only thing they can do to save us, or perhaps a younger part of us that's stuck in a moment of trauma or attachment wounding or something like that, right? So we really need to be able to approach the firefighter with genuine curiosity and appreciation eventually also. And that's really, really hard to do with these extreme parts, right? So these other parts, we want to validate them that they make sense and kind of propose an experiment. Like, what if you let me go toward this part? This might need to be done at a time when the firefighter's not active to just get the permission of those parts who don't like it to maybe do an experiment. The next time the firefighter comes up, will you let me go toward them with curiosity? And if you can go toward them with curiosity, I'm going to link a video. I can't remember if it goes up here or up here, one of those corners, where I detail specifically how I worked with a firefighter part when it came up and was active and was overwhelming my system. Because I had done enough inner exploration for my other parts to trust me, um, they allowed my self energy to meet the firefighter in that moment. And I gained incredible insight about what the suicidal part, which was actually a murderous part, it wanted another part of me dead. It would say it wanted me dead, but it wanted another part of me. And as I was able to approach it with curiosity and really listen and wanted to understand it, it showed me the part it was pointing at that it wanted dead and what needed to happen in the system, what other parts needed to come out of exile, and which parts were exiling them that needed their concerns met to let this part come out so that this one was protected, so that the suicidal part didn't have to come up. So again, it sounds complicated, like there's this complicated map of parts, but it just happened very organically with me being able to have curiosity and really listen to the suicidal part, which again is really hard to do if we're blended with fearful parts or critical parts. So check out that video, and you can see exactly kind of what that looked like for me with the suicidal part, which is really the kingpin of firefighters, right? The any kind of addictive part or even raging part is really trying to protect against the firefighter of suicide coming in. So, you can check that out. But another thing that I want to say is I know that it can be incredibly difficult to meet with a firefighter from self, right, within your system. So one thing you might do, a couple tips. One is to know a person who can offer you self energy in moments like that, that you can call, that's not going to be blended with their own fearful fix-it parts or critical parts. It's not going to try to get rid of the suicidal part, but it's going to really listen and be open and curious with you. So if you do have someone in your life who you know can be in self energy, with that suicidal part, that's hard to ask too. That's a difficult thing to find. Um, Another idea is that when you are in self energy at a different time, you might even write a note to your suicidal part because it's hard to interact with it when it's not up. The good thing of when an addictive part, a raging part, a suicidal part comes up is that now you can interact with it because it is up in your system and available. So it can be hard to work with it at other times, but when it's up, it's overwhelms your system and it's hard to work with. So you can imagine when you're in self energy, kind of writing a letter of curiosity, right? Why do you do this? I know you do this for a reason. I know you're protecting me. Tell me about yourself. Tell me what you're afraid would happen if you didn't make me rage, if you didn't push me to use this substance, if you didn't have me do this risky behavior, if you didn't self-harm, if you didn't want to die or want to kill another part. If you didn't do that, what are you afraid would happen? How old are you? How long have you been doing this? You can kind of write that in a letter so that then when that part comes up, you might then access the letter that was written in self energy and be able to access a little bit of relationship between self and the firefighter in that moment. Um, and that also leads me to talk about, I've talked about this several times in videos, but it's really worth repeating, is this backward nature of awareness and how, in my experience, uh, parts are healed and naturally, organically able to change um, simply through non-judgmental awareness, which really is self-energy. So sometimes we can only access that after the fact and that's usually where it starts. So maybe it's like waking up, right? And we realize, oh my gosh, I just binged on that thing, or I just did this destructive thing in my relationship and raged, or I just cut myself, I just self-harmed, right? Or I just had this suicidal ideation that was so incredibly powerful. So it's after the fact if you can, from that space, give curiosity and compassion toward the firefighter that was doing that, do that after the fact. And then gradually that non-judgmental awareness will begin to move to during the fact. You'll notice when the firefighter is taking you over and you'll say, oh my goodness, you're here. I've talked to you before after the fact. And now I'm here with you. Tell me what you're so afraid of. Tell me what's upsetting you right now. Do you need help with what you're protecting? Right? And really have relationship in the moment. Because what that looks like is basically, I'm going to do another video about what it means to unblend, but unblending is when you're one and you become two, right? So you're blended with the firefighter, you are the firefighter, you're raging, you're using, you're feeling suicidal, and you just a little bit of space where now I see you, firefighter. I see that you're here and I'm with you. So unblending is now the one has become two, and I see you and I'm with you. And so sometimes what I'll do, especially when I feel very overwhelmed by a part, and it might be a firefighter, it might be a really desperate manager, it might be an exile's huge shame or grief or terror. I will ask, can you be nose to nose with me? So again, I'm they're with me. It's like one, and I'm asking, can we be two, right? Can you come nose to nose with me? I'm not trying to get rid of you because that's what they're afraid of, that you're trying to get rid of them. If it's a firefighter, they're afraid that you don't understand the desperate nature of their job and that they have to do this to save your life. But if so you let them know, I'm not trying to get rid of you. I want to see you. I want to understand you. I want to know you. Can you be nose to nose with me? Again, if you're blended with a fearful part or a fix it or critical part, they often won't unblend, or definitely won't talk to you and give you insight because you're going to then judge them or be afraid of them, right? So it's important to get those parts to give you space so that you can just be a little bit curious. And the more work you do with this, the easier and easier it gets because you have so much evidence. That experience that I linked above about meeting with the suicidal part was so pivotal in my system because other parts also saw the effectiveness of having open curiosity toward a really extreme part that they could not possibly fathom could have any kind of good intention. But once the insight was gained, they saw, oh my gosh, even the kingpin of firefighters, the suicidal part, had good intention for me. Like their logic made sense in their mind. They just didn't understand that I wasn't still five. They didn't, and they were pointing to things that actually were helpful, that I needed a rearrangement of parts in my system to have more harmony, right? So it's hard to believe that these firefighters that have addiction and rage and self-harm could have good intention, but I guarantee you they do. And so just even that question of what are you afraid would happen if you weren't doing this will point you to what they protect. And like I said, what they protect needs to be healed and helped, which is to go back and reparent and redo those situations and help them unburden their burdens. And then the firefighter organically, naturally does not have to do their job anymore. You don't have to, the other parts don't have to work to force them down, to make them not do it, to scold them, to shame them. Um, they naturally can release that job, but not until what they protect is healed. So finding out what they protect, giving them their flowers, honestly, appreciating them. And once you hear their genuine story, you will naturally feel appreciative to them. Wow, so you're saving my life. You think I'm three. Oh, right. You don't know that self is here and that self can be with these big emotions of shame. So you got to put the fire out because you don't know self, right? So so it really is in this relationship. And so often it starts after the fact, then during the fact, you might be able to have a little curiosity when the firefighter comes up, and then gradually it gets to before the fact. You start to notice the little triggers or activation points that might, often what's happening is they're activating an exile. The exile's pain comes up and the firefighter comes in. So you begin to notice, ooh, this thing right here, like going to this place or interacting with this person might activate my exile. And then that firefighter might come in. So I'm aware of this. So now I'm going to go to the exile and see what they need to feel safe. And there's always going to be times when you get activated and you couldn't predict it, obviously. But you'll notice it building. You'll notice a lot of times we just notice the rage or the numbing, escaping behavior of the firefighter first, but you'll start to notice the grief and the pain and the shame of the exile coming up. And you'll be like, oh, that firefighter is about to come in. Let me, the self, go to the pain of the exile and be with it and love it and allow it so that the firefighter sees, I'm here with this precious one that's coming up. You don't have to come in and numb me or push it out in rage or, escape ultimately through suicide. I'm here. I can be here with the pain of the exile. And then they don't have to come in. So I hope that helps. I really want to validate that it's super overwhelming when firefighters take over, and in that moment, it's hard to know what to do. So that's why it's never too late. You can do stuff after. I know there's a lot of destruction, even ultimate destruction that firefighters can do. Um, but that's how you make the progress to begin to have a self to part relationship with those parts. And last thing I'll say, and I'm kind of repeating something because it's so helpful to me, whenever I feel so overwhelmed, like where is self, where is self, where is self, I'm so overwhelmed with blended with a part. It's so helpful to me to just say, can you be nose to nose with me? And I feel just a little bit of a removal of the energy with which I can see the part. I might see it like it looks like me that's in anguish in front of me or raging or something in front of me. And I begin to have, or it might just be the energy in front of you. You might not see anything, but I can now have a compassion toward it as if it was someone else. And that's the unblending. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any additional questions about this, about what happens when you get, what did they say, when things go wrong, right? When you're just overwhelmed with really intense firefighters or any part. If you have additional questions, leave them in the comments. If you want to share an additional tip that has helped you or an experience of something that you've done when you're blended with firefighters, go ahead and leave that in the comments as well.